Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Down the Pipe. I'm Levi Stevenson, joined by my good friends Marchie Murdoch and Jordan Harris. Back for another part of our season preview, part 3 of our schedule preview, going through opponents one by one for Iowa State this upcoming football season. Guys, I know you guys are getting ready to get deep into the heart of your own preseason camps this week for your high school teams. God, it feels like football now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And the grass smell a little different outside too this time of the year. So football for sure. So
and actually Iowa State gets started this week for their own fall camp. They get started on Wednesday. So that's fun. Get some guys out there and finally get some reports from the media, get the guys practicing, get them out there and doing their thing. So really looking forward to seeing that. Oh, I've got the wrong banner down. Yeah, see? Down the pipe. Wrong. Now we have the right show up. But anyways, so we are going to get started today. We are previewing the Arizona game, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. Kind of a quick recap. We've gone through the first 6 games of the season. Southeast Missouri at Iowa and Bowling Green. We kind of came out of that thinking 2-1 at worst. You have a real shot at getting to Iowa because of some matchup details there for Iowa State. Utah at home, probably the toughest home game of the schedule for sure. Good team, you've got a shot, but it's that's an uphill battle against a really physical team. West Virginia at home, you got a shot, and if you can bottle up the run with West Virginia, you had a good shot there. You got them at home, and then probably the toughest game of the season at BYU out in Provo. Good football team, really solid thing on the road, tough road environment. Friday night, that's gonna be a tough one for Iowa State. They've got a shot, but tough one. So, at this point in the season, I think if you're midway through the season and if you're sitting at 3-3 at this point in the season, I think you're feeling okay, because you've got at least 3 winnable games on the way out to get to your bowl game. If you're sitting, in my mind, if you're sitting any better than 3-3 right now, you're feeling pretty good, because that means you beat at least one of BYU, Utah, and Iowa. You beat at least one of those if you're 4-2 or better right now, probably. Yeah. So, if you're sitting here at 3-3 at this midpoint of the season, obviously it depends on how you feel about it, who you beat, who you didn't beat type of thing. But I got to imagine that, like, as a fan, because this is also coming off of a bye week too. So you have BYU, and then you're on a bye week, and then you're at Arizona. So I think as a fan, as long as the BYU game goes reasonably well, even if you don't quite win it, you're feeling pretty good. Like, you're feeling like this thing is probably moving along all right. Wouldn't you think? Yeah,
I would, especially once we get to, because in my opinion, I think that's the toughest 3-game stretch of the schedule. So if we can get out of there 3-3, it won't be the end of the world, because we know it's a lot of football still left to be played. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be feeling bad at all. I'd be feeling okay.
Yeah.
I agree with Jordan. I think obviously you would want to be better than 3-3, but sure. I think just with it being the first year and just a lot of turnover, I think you would be satisfied with that going into the last 6 games.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And one thing I love to see too, from game 1 to game 6, I love to see us study getting better every game.
Yeah.
1,000%.
And like I said, if you can get out of that the first half of that schedule, because I would say the schedule is very much front loaded. Like, all your 3 toughest games on the schedule are all in the first half of your schedule. So if you can navigate that whole first bit, 3-3 or better, which is super doable. 3-3 only requires you to beat West Virginia at home, Bowling Green at home, SEMO at home. Those are the only 3 teams you got to beat to get out of that 3-3 and feel like a bowl game is absolutely achievable from there. And because down the stretch you've got Oklahoma State, which they were bad last year. They've got a lot of transfers. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. They're kind of they might be really good. They might take a second to get to mesh together. You're on the road at Baylor, but Baylor is kind of a mess. They have a new quarterback, but like this feels like this might be Aranda's last try at keeping his job at this point. And then we'll talk about them next week too. But then you've got Cincinnati and UCF, both teams which are probably expected to not be very good this year. And then you've got a home date with Kansas State. You've got an achievable schedule to finish out where it feels like you could absolutely win at least 3 more of those, if not 3 or more of those, pretty easily. But let's start with Arizona. So obviously headed down to Tucson for the first time since Arizona's been in the Big 12. Arizona last year, 2 years ago in the first year in the Big 12 only won 4 games. Last year they won 10. They did a really nice job in the second year under Brent Brennan. Noah Fafita looked good. Everyone, Noah Fafita's freshman year in the Pac-12, he was very good. Sophomore year definitely struggled, even with Tetero and McMillan. Third year looked much better, took care of the ball, did a good job, and now they're going into this year with a lot of expectations. A lot of people believe that Arizona has a shot, that if enough things go their way, they have a tough schedule, but if enough things went their way, they could be in contention to go to Arlington to try to play for a conference title because they've got so much experience coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last year, Iowa State waxed them at home. Granted, it's kind of weird to talk about last year because it's almost an entirely new football team. So like last year's game really doesn't matter all that much. Yeah. But what we did see though last year is that Arizona's defense likes to run a really wacky scheme, especially up front. They run tons and tons of stunts. They stunt basically every play. They bring really weird pressures, trying to muddy up the line as much as they can. Mm-hmm. So I want to start with Arizona on defense because I think this is a really interesting thing. They lose all of their top 9 tacklers from last season except one. They brought in a lot of transfers. They brought in transfer corners from Oregon, Wyoming, and I believe Akron, a couple other places. They theoretically did a really nice job in the transfer portal as far as replacing depth. But you are going to be replacing probably like 8-ish starters on defense. With that kind of chaos defense that they run, where it's just everybody's everywhere all the time, and it runs on confusion. When you're trying to go after that, like, how much faith do you have that they're going to be able to replicate what they did last year, where it's a solid defense, but they really relied last year on catching teams off guard with that chaos look up front. How do you feel about that in the second year with a full year of it on tape, and now you also have a bunch of new guys in the system?
Marchie, you want to get that one?
I mean, there's definitely going to be a transition, in my opinion, just because a lot of those guys, they're still coming from other places. You got scheme you got to learn. In my opinion, you don't really know for sure who your players are until it's time to actually play. You kind of have an idea through practice, but I think you get that reassurance when it's time to play. As far as how they run stunts and how they try and muddy up stuff, I just think it's a good scheme. Obviously, you have to be really disciplined on the back end with a lot of stuff, with a lot of confusion and things that they try and do up at the front. But at the same time, team like that, if you can run the ball and get them to kind of not be aggressive, but be playing catch, I think there's going to be some opportunities even downfield, kind of like how it was last year. In a sense, we had a long touchdown throw that was like caught at like the 1-yard line, I think, early on in the game. Even a couple trick plays and stuff happened. And also, I believe we caught like a slant, took it down the field for a big gain. So, but that all happens when you're running the football and you're creating gaps and stuff like that for the offense. But again, I do think they're going to be a pretty good team. I'm not really as high on them as other people are, in my opinion. I think this is a game that we can definitely go down and steal one.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I love now, we get to add Rainer legs to the party. Mm-hmm. Like he's really a threat to run the ball. So I think they got to be real careful with their blitzes that they're doing. And we just got to win our one-on-ones, because we know when a team forced the issue like this and we get it picked up, we got to count on our receivers or tight ends that win their one-on-one battles.
I specifically think this is a really interesting matchup for Iowa State in the running game, especially because, like, again, we don't know for sure, but we're anticipating to see like Iowa State's running game will likely try to be born a lot of out of some heavier looks, maybe that Maryland eye, some single back type stuff, some strong eye type thing, like a lot of like kind of old school heavy running principles, that A-gap power, with Arizona stunting their line as much. It muddies things up a little bit because it makes your blocking assignments a little bit less clean. It makes them a little bit less black and white. So it'd be an interesting challenge, I think, for Iowa State at that point of the season, because we're at game 7 at this point. The offensive line should be really starting to gel by now. And to me, if your offensive line is gelling how you think it's supposed to, and the guys are, they have a good feel for how the blocking scheme is supposed to work on different concepts, that at that point, if they're smart, they should be able to kind of blow up this, all the kind of the smoke and mirrors that Arizona likes to use up front, and really gash them in the running game, especially up the middle. Because if you're stunting defensive tackles and they're not quick enough to get to their new gap, you're gonna leave a gap wide open. And especially if your guard and center are doing their job, and you got 2 fullbacks coming screaming through that gap that was just vacated by a defensive tackle going on a twist or something like that, that's a place where that if Arizona isn't careful, they can get too over aggressive there, and they can start losing ground in the run game really quickly. Yeah. So I think that game will be an interesting test for a line to see how well they're gelling, how smart they are football wise, just to know, to not bite on, this tackle is trying to twist out behind the guy next to him, not following him around, maintaining your discipline and things like that. I think that'll be really interesting up there. But like you said, you have Jalen Raynor's legs that you can use in the play action, stuff like that. An interesting stat here for Arizona is that they were a perfect 9-0 when they held opponents under 400 yards, and they were at 0-4 when they allowed over 400 yards. Now, the kind of companion stat to that is they were second in the league in forcing turnovers after Utah. They were very good at forcing turnovers. However, if you took care of the ball, you moved it between the 20s, they were prone to giving up touchdowns in the red zone, and they were going to lose those games. If you didn't give them the ball a bunch, they struggled winning games because their defense is like as aggressive as we think the 4-2-5 man concept defense that we're going to be running is aggressive. If that's a 6 and Arizona's running like an 8 or a 9 in terms of aggression, is what they're trying to do. They're trying every single play. They're trying to get a negative play or a turnover every single play. And obviously you guys know, like when you take, that requires you to take risks, and it requires you to have guys that are like, you really need them to be in position all the time. Otherwise you're going to break off big plays and things like that. I will be curious to see how Iowa State handles that, because it's an offense that I think will want to try to be, eat clock, be more, quote unquote conservative. But if Arizona is giving you spots to attack,
gotta take advantage.
Will they take their opportunity to kind of get them in a soft spot and gash them sometimes, or do they kind of stick to their guns a little bit and just eat clock, keep Arizona's offense off the field, and just be fine with what they give you? I'd be curious to see how that balance works out.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, how the offense approach it is gonna be based off how the defense play. Like honestly, if Arizona going down there, if we shutting them out, they punting 3 and out, and we getting the ball, we're gonna try to eat up clock. But if they're scoring quick or scoring period like consistently, I think we'll try to match that. So I think it all depends on how the defense come out and play that offense.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder though, because like I said, we think it's probably going to be Iowa State's is going to try to be more of a ball control offense. Mm-hmm. I think, in my mind, feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but if Arizona is starting to move the ball and they're able to get some room consistently and they're moving the ball pretty consistently, in my mind, if you're Iowa State, it's rather than trying to match pace or try to match scoring necessarily. You always want to match scoring. You want to score every time you touch the ball, but rather than trying to push beyond what they normally have, to me, if you can continue to just go on these longer methodical drives and keep while continuing to put points on the board, you can keep Arizona's offense off the field. I mean, Noah Fafita ain't worth shit if he's not if he's not on the field.
That's true. That is true. I agree with that too. It can go both ways though.
Sure,
but I agree.
There's multiple ways to skin a cat for sure.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see how that matchup works, because Arizona, part of their deal is that they replace pretty much their entire 2 deep in the secondary is going to be all transfers, all new guys. Now, granted, by game 7, you would think they would probably be getting at the speed that they should be pretty much ingrained in their system. But those are a lot of new guys. And if at that point in the season, they're not all together and they're still shuffling guys around, trying to figure out who starters are going to be, that to me leaves a variable there for confusion, for broken coverages, things like that may not ordinarily be there had they had all the guys from last year or something like that.
Yeah. I think an interesting dynamic in this game too is just which quarterback is going to play better. I think both quarterbacks are kind of similar, smaller, statured guys, very mobile, want to be able to use their legs in the run game and also just being able to extend plays in the passing game. So it'll definitely be an interesting game. And I just think overall this is a game that, you can really use to kind of elevate yourself and the season as it continues to go along. And hopefully it's a big statement win for us.
Yeah, it will be. And I also think with how aggressive Arizona is defensively, this will be a good game to get the running backs involved in the screen game. Because blitzing, when you can get a screen into a blitz, you're cooking.
Yeah.
Switching over to the other side of the ball, you got Noah Fafita there. He is mobile. Over his career, he's not really been much of a primary runner. They don't run him off of read options or anything like that very often. He's quick in space, but because he's smaller, I think they do their best to try to not have him get hit, especially on design QB runs for the most part.
Yep.
But it's clear to see when you watch him, he's athletic, he's quick. He can hit you, he can hurt you with his legs if he really needs to, but he is more pocket oriented than Jalen Rayner probably is. Not that Jalen can't sit in the pocket and deliver footballs, but I think Iowa State will be more likely to try to use Jalen Rayner's legs as a primary ball carrier in the run game a lot more than Arizona will try to do with Noah Fafita.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at a mobile quarterback that's small like that, I like the idea of having this the 4 down front, get him uncomfortable, hopefully. But Arizona's they've got a lot of guys back. They were really, really good on offense last year. They were a top 3 unit in the Big 12. They did a really nice job. Offensive coordinator Seth Daggy, nice throwback there from the old Texas Tech days. I think he might have been the quarterback when you were at Iowa State, March, or no? Actually, you might have gone against him, Jordan. Maybe Seth Daggy. Maybe he was before you.
Yeah, probably.
Anyways, they are bringing back a couple good backs. So Kedrick Riscano coming back as well. They got Quincy Craig is also coming back. He ran for 300. They both ran for about 350, 400 yards last year. They brought in another back from Marshall, Anton Roberts. Last year, their leading receiver, I believe, was Trey Spivey. He was a Kansas State transfer before last season. Comes back again this year. They should have a pretty good offensive line. I think this offense is going to be pretty good. Last year, what we saw was the offense was good, but it wasn't good enough to win games on its own. The defense was good, but it wasn't good enough to win games on its own. And I kind of think they're going to be in a similar boat this year, as long as Noah Fafita keeps taking care of the ball, stays healthy. They did have a backup quarterback transfer out, so they're pretty thin at quarterback behind Fafita. So if he's banged up, that's a big problem for Arizona. But this is now the conference of mobile quarterbacks. Granted, even back in the air raid days, there wasn't many true like statues there, in the Big 12. There were a couple, but for the most part, everybody, like even the air raid quarterbacks, could move around a little bit. And we're kind of there now, where basically every team has a mobile-ish quarterback or better, or one that's just a flat-out good runner. No Fafita is probably in the middle of that pack. To me, the difficulties with defending this Arizona team, they don't do anything like unique schematically necessarily. They have good skill players, none that are going to like blow you away. They don't have like a Tetero McMillan or anything like that, where he's just clearly just better than everybody else type of thing. When you're going up against a balanced attack like this, where the ball can go anywhere, they can do lots of things. There isn't necessarily a guy to hone in on besides a quarterback that can run around a little bit. When you're looking at that from Iowa State on a defensive standpoint, there, how does your scouting report change when you don't have a name to focus on, basically?
I think the name to focus on would be Fafita, of course. But I honestly think, man, we just gotta play our defense, do what we do. But the thing about it that I love, that he's a short quarterback. We're 4 down. Let's try to keep him in the pocket every time he throws the ball. If D linemen get our hands up and try to get tilt balls. But for some reason, I think they're gonna try to lean on the running game a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That's what I think they're gonna do. So I just think we just gotta don't go away from what we do and just make them play our game. We're not gonna play their game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you try and get them, obviously, but with every quarterback you want to, but especially quarterbacks that you shorter stature and you feel like you can get your hands up and be able to make them have to throw the ball high over, and maybe it oversells and it falls into the DBs or the linebackers' hands. But with them, I think when they don't have a specific guy that you key on, I think you play against their tendencies. What do they like to do? And you kind of try and take that away. In certain situations, the downs and distance, who are they focusing on when it's passing downs? I think you kind of play more situational ball, where if it's like it's 3rd and long, who are the guys that they're looking to try and get the ball, while also probably trying to contain Fafita, because we don't want him to be able to get out the pocket and extend plays and things like that. So I would suggest probably have it as where, like, whatever the down and distance or the situation is, that's who we're going to kind of try and key on, because at that point in the season, you kind of know who your guys are. I'm assuming if the guy's there for another year, Spivey, he was a lead receiver. I'm assuming when it's 3rd and long situations, we need to make sure that we key on him, but obviously not forgetting the other guys and just leaving other people wide open and giving them easy throws. But I do agree with Jordan. I do think they try and lean on the run game. And, it's just kind of usually I know what type of defense we're running. And this year, I know we're attacking style defense, but depending on how we're looking, how healthy are we that point in the season, it could be completely different. So that'll definitely be a good, exciting game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, and the only reason I said that about the run game, March, was because it looks like, just look at the backs, the production. It looked like they're trying to do it by committee. So that's why I think they'll lean on it.
Yeah.
And this is one too where, after the first game against, granted it'll be against Southeast Missouri, but we'll have like a better idea. I think like the X's and O's matchup, our perception of the X's and O's matchup of this game could change pretty dramatically between, after the first, especially like by the time you get done with the Iowa game, we're probably going to have a way better idea of how the X's and O's match up a little bit better. But I do think that Arizona, again, will try to win on the ground, because, not that Noah Fafita is probably their best player on offense for sure. But for them, I think they're going to want to just try to bury this thing in the running game, because I think my guess is they will believe that they will have a significant personnel advantage, that over time that eventually they can lean on their offensive line and just do damage, just keep gashing in the running game and just keep going, just let that win them the game versus trying to, if you remember like the old Dana Holgerson, West Virginia teams they would just bomb it early. They would try to kill you in the first quarter. Basically said like, we're going to hit 2 deep bombs in the first quarter, get you down 14-0 quick. And then you're just chasing and you're demoralized the entire game. Basically that was how they attacked it. My guess is that Arizona in this particular game will probably try to the opposite side of that and just try to just grind this thing out, and essentially have faith that over time their continuity and their roster talent will eventually win out over an Iowa State team that is inexperienced, and at least as of right now, we don't know exactly how good they are because we haven't seen them on a football field yet. We think they're going to be better than than national people think, but we don't know that yet. We haven't seen anything really. So that I think that's how Arizona will at least try it. So I think for Iowa State, especially if you can bottle that run up early and really make them lean on Fafita's arm the whole game. Again, good quarterback. He can win a game, but I think if you can take away that run early on, like I think I would, if I were Iowa State, I'd be really thinking about about bringing pressure early, like maybe not the first couple plays of the game, but early on, I think I'd think about bringing pressure, as a run blitz type of thing, or just to try to get Fafita running around, get him uncomfortable right away, and just because I think if you let Arizona with all their experience, I think if you let Arizona just sit down, get comfortable, and just kind of methodically go through this whole game, you're going to be playing from behind a lot of this game because they have a lot of talent, they have a really good quarterback. And they'll be at home and all this too. So like, there's a lot of things that will give them an advantage with the longer that they try to just kind of grind this thing out in theory. But for Iowa State, Iowa State will try to lean on the run game, try to turn them over a couple times and make this thing interesting, make Arizona panic basically. If you get into stare down with Arizona, try to just make them blink first basically.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Like I said, this is probably the second toughest game on the schedule. It's like the second toughest road game on the schedule after the BYU game, I would say. Right now, this feels like a close loss to me. I don't see Arizona like popping off for like 450 yards and Iowa State losing by 30. I don't see that happening this game. Like I'm kind of with Marchie that I'm not as high on Arizona as other people are, and like last year. That 10-2 record was with a fairly light schedule where they got to avoid Utah Tech and BYU, I believe, and they caught Arizona State on a down year. So like I don't know. Their 10-2 record was on the softer side. They've got a much tougher schedule this year. Also, this game falls the week before they go to Texas Tech, and absolutely could be looking ahead there. Saying like we've got easily the toughest game on our schedule coming up.
Are they coming off of a bye as well as us?
They are coming off of a bye, and they're coming off a bye, and then they got Texas Tech right after us. That feels like a spot where they could be losing some focus in that middle week.
Yeah, they could be. They could be.
Because they're going to be spending 2 weeks thinking about that Texas Tech game coming up.
They sure will.
Especially they got West Virginia before that, and like we talked about West Virginia. I don't know how good they're going to be. Their running game is going to be spicy enough that I think they're going to accidentally take somebody out at some point. Like they might reach up and just upset somebody just because their running game is really good. But we'll see. Okay, let's move on to Oklahoma State, who I think is one of the most interesting teams in the conference, maybe the most interesting team in the conference. I mean, Iowa State notwithstanding for me. New coaching staff for the first time in a very, very long time. Eric Morris coming in from North Texas. Name of the game here. I mean, the name of the game here is scoring points. They are going to be tossing it around the yard. Last year, North Texas had the number one offense in college football in terms of total offense, total offense and scoring. I think they put up a ton of points. And that was on the backs of Drew Mestemaker, the quarterback, and running back Caleb Hawkins, both of which now come to Stillwater with Coach Morris. this Oklahoma State team like everybody's kind of got their eye on them because they were bad last year, like really bad enough that Mike Gundy finally got fired. This team will probably look like a lot of those like early 2010s Oklahoma State teams where they were putting 500, 600 yards of offense on the board every single game and just winning shootouts 45-40. The most stereotypical Big 12 plays no defense, air raid type football team. I think Oklahoma State will have an okay defense, but clearly the name of the game here with this team is throw it around the yard, score points.
Yeah.
Old school Big 12.
Yep. And I think this is they can potentially be a sleeper team. I don't know how good their offensive line is, but I know when you have guys that move from a group of 4 conference to a power 4 conference, all offseason they're going to be hearing, oh, you didn't play nobody. So I think these guys are going to come out this season with a chip on their shoulder. And I watched North Texas the last 2 years. Their offense can put up points for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely going to get guys in space. They want to get the ball out quick. Mestamaker, right?
Yep.
I keep
Mestamaker.
wanting to say Westerway for whatever reason, but Mestamaker, I think he's a pretty good quarterback. Big thing is you got to get negative plays versus them. You got to put them in situations where they're, TFLs are huge. Tackling is huge. If they're going to try and put guys in space, you got to be able to tackle because one tackle could lead in an extra 10, 15 yards.
Yeah. And understanding, and I know the guys will be able to understand everything schematically. Like, go for your tackle, but if you miss a tackle, just know you got help coming from this way. Don't miss a tackle when you gotta have outside force. You miss it inside, they're going for 40 or 50. So just playing within the scheme and understanding where your help at. I think we'll be good, and we playing them in the jack too.
Couple interesting thing here. I saw a comment about it, about not bringing up when North Texas played Washington State last year. They did. Washington State won 59-10. So that's an interesting thing. There's a couple interesting points specifically on that. In that game, I believe North Texas forced 5 turnovers that game. So that Washington State offense turned it over 5 times. If you want to lose 59-10, turning over 5 times is a really good way to do that.
Washington State.
Washington State lost.
I thought you just said.
I thought you said it the other way around. Okay.
North Texas beat Washington State 59-10 last year. Washington State's offense turned it over 5 times, and it's like looking at that score line, you would think that North Texas went absolutely nuts. I mean, they did. I mean, they scored 59 points. Drew Mestamaker only had 211 passing yards. Their leading rusher was McGill with 67 yards. They had their leading receiver had 44 yards. Their offense had to do almost nothing in that game. So the scoreline is a little misleading because North Texas had tons of short fields because of bad turnovers and stuff like that. Now, 5 turnovers is a lot, and that is still a Jimmy Rogers coached football team. However, the only thing they're bringing back from that game is the defense. The offense from last year's Washington State team is 0% on this team outside of the leading receiver for Washington State that game, Carter Pabst, who is now a Cyclone. So the only good part about that game for Washington State on offense is the one guy that Iowa State brought over with them from that. In the second half of that game, they did a lot better. It got out of hand early, and then it just kind of whatever. So the other part of that is now Jimmy Rogers has a pretty big chip on his shoulder because he's not trying to get his ass beat by Eric Morris 2 years in a row. This type of game, this feels like a game where the ball control offense for Iowa State really comes to a head. It's like how good are they at doing that? And especially, and this to me is a big offensive line game because if Iowa State can keep that offense off the field, Oklahoma State is going to have some tough sledding going up here because they're going to be relying on winning some of these games 49-42. They're going to be reliant on that.
Yeah. And
But it's also tempting if you know the defense is kind of okay. It's
yeah,
tempting to start
tempting
taking shots.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I think by this game in the season, I think our offense is going to be super potent by this time in the season, and hopefully we're at a point that we can turn it up when we want to, honestly. And I think we will be there. But playing this team, I mean, defense, we know we got to play sound defense. I mean, we can't. I think this is a game where we tighten up on our coverage and force Mester Maker to try to beat us with his legs. Yep, try to beat us with his legs. Like, cut it down, have a spy on him if he breaks out, which I don't think he runs as much. He got 5 rushing TDs.
Yeah, not a ton.
So just make him beat with our legs. We got a 4 down coming, so I think pressure will be getting there. I think we'll be good.
If there is a quote unquote statue quarterback in the league, it might be Mester Maker.
Yep.
But he can move around enough to get himself out of trouble. But you know, now I'm curious how you guys would do it, because back the old school air raid teams, that's what the 3-3-5 was invented for. If there's one game on the schedule, you're like, oh, it might be nice to still run the 3-3-5. It might be this game. Now, granted, Caleb Hawkins, really good running back. They're still going to try to run the ball, but Eric Morris is an air raid guy. He wants to throw the football, and he will do it to Caleb Hawkins as well.
Yeah.
What is your concern level, I guess? Now you're running this 4-2-5 man-heavy defense that, granted, got torched last year, sort of, by North Texas, at least touchdown-wise. But, they've learned lessons from that. And now you're going into it this year with a new defense, with this man-heavy scheme in that going up against an quote-unquote old-school air raid offense, which is a crazy sentence to say. But, the one of those old Big 12 air raid offenses, which is what this is. What concern level do you have of running that kind of defense, after we just essentially kind of got rid of the defense that was made to stop this offense?
I personally don't have any concerns, because I know for a fact in obvious run downs, early downs, we're going to be in a 4-man to have the box loaded and all that. But when it's obvious past the situation, I'm sure they are going to have some type of 3-down package, a more coverage happy package. So as far as the concern level, I think we'll be fine. We just got to play the scouting report. I mean, when it's obvious pass downs, we probably have 3 down to a quarterback spy and playing different coverages behind it. But I think we got this one.
Marchie.
Yeah, I just, it's tough. I do think they'll run some more 3 down, particularly in this game. Probably be in a lot of nickel for sure. Stuff like that. Or trying to get an extra DB on the field in some sort of way, especially in passing downs. To me, this game comes down to, if they're going to throw the ball, let's get some type of pressure. Let's see how many sacks and TFLs that we can get. Also, obviously, you want to be able to force some turnovers as well. But I think this is a game for your pass rushers like Bobby Terrell, to come off that edge and, go get the quarterback, get to the quarterback, your hair's on fire, get to him, be disruptive. And then your linebackers have got to key in on, backs and stuff, throwing the stuff out the backfield and things like that. And again, in these type of games, you got to be able to tackle in open space. Now, obviously, that's for every week, but in these type of games where they're trying to get the ball on the perimeter, UNT at UNT they're going to throw a quick game. They're going to do a lot of RPOs, action, things like that to get you to be thinking or second guessing at all. So you just got to be able to tackle, and you got to be disciplined and be in the right spots. I do think being in the JAC is a little different. This is a lot different than playing at UNT. And so being in the JAC and the crowd being involved, the crowd noise, different things like that. Maybe some type of elements are involved this time towards the season. It may be a little chilly, a little colder, so it's tougher to catch the football. So that ball control offense could definitely help you on the back end too. As a defense, you're being well rested, because I'm assuming Oklahoma State's going to try and do a lot of tempo as well. and trying to catch them off guard.
Yeah.
So being able to keep them on the sideline and keep your defense rested, so that way when they do get on the field, they can handle that stuff and they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the going to three down is an interesting thing because more guys in coverage is more guys in coverage, but I do wonder, I guess, is like, let's say you get into a 3rd and 8. I think I would be inclined to still leave 4 down. I think because like these, especially these more of these air raid type schemes, if they get time to throw, they like somebody will come open, like no matter what. Like these schemes are just made that way that like with enough time, somebody is going to come open. And so I'm wondering if you still lean on the pressure on that, just to say, hey, we're going to trust our guys to win their one-on-one battles in man coverage, and we're going to keep trying to put pressure on them and not let them get comfortable and let them get into rhythm. Because like no huddle offenses especially really rely on just being able to sit down and just get in the rhythm and just go, run the play, do your thing, get set, go, run the play. It is. There's a rhythm is a big component of it. So I'm kind of curious if their mindset is we're going to sit back like that 3-3, like the old 3-3 stack did. Like we're just going to sit back and we're just going to have more guys in coverage than you have receivers downfield and just wait it out basically. Or if they totally flip it on its head and say we're going to continue to go after this guy, never let him sit down in the pocket, never let him get comfortable, and make him make really quick reads all the time and make them win all of those one-on-one matchups like quickly, not just a guy gets loose in the play because a safety doesn't plaster quickly enough or whatever it is, basically make Oklahoma State operate like really at a really, really high level in tight spaces and quickly in tight time windows as well as tight space windows.
Yeah.
I'm curious how they handle that. We'll get a kind of a better idea for how they approach certain situations after the first couple games. But I'd be curious to see how they handle that, because this is an interesting case study where they've got, just in terms of just firepower on offense, this theoretically could be maybe one of the 2 or 3 best big offenses in the conference. If everything goes well, maybe the best offense in the conference. But I'd be curious to see how they handle that.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see too, man. At the end of the day, I think it's going everything from the start. It started with stopping the run. I see they had a 1,400-yard rusher, and then after that, just keep the quarterback uncomfortable the whole game, and that can be showing a 4 down, but you don't know if this DN dropping to the boundary. You don't know, just being creative with it, and I think our D staff will do a good job at that, like the chess match part of it.
This feels like a game where like a Bobby Terrell could be like the deciding factor for Iowa State on defense.
Yep.
Not only getting to the quarterback, but if they drop him back into coverage a couple times just to disguise another blitz or something like that, dropping him into coverage and grabbing, they got a slot guy just coming on a quick slant or something like that, and he just drops into coverage and snatches that. Like that kind of thing feels like a spot where you can really punish Oklahoma State for trying to take too many easy throws and trying to get too comfortable and generate a turnover, which, I really think for Iowa State this year, every turnover should feel to the other team like a dagger. It should feel like holy, like ugh, we gave them the ball. Now they're gonna score and they're gonna eat 8 minutes off the clock while they're doing it, type of thing. I think this team has a shot to like really make turnovers feel demoralizing for the other team. And I think like a Bobby Terrell or a Willie Breland, I think, which I know Jordan and I have been really high on Willie Breland for this whole offseason type of thing. Those kinds of guys I think can be huge X factors in a game like this.
That can be.
Yeah. So this one's at home. Lots and lots of questions with Oklahoma State. Lots of potential, very high ceiling. But if the offensive line doesn't come together right away, if their secondary isn't where they need it to be, it could be lots of like close losses for Oklahoma State where they're a couple plays away. I think the variance between their floor and their ceiling this year is about as high as anybody. Like, they've got a slightly more difficult schedule. I think if like enough things went wrong, they could go 4-8, 5-7 type of thing. But like if that offense is really clicking, if that offense is humming and the defense is just good enough, they could win 9 games. Like, I think they could be anywhere from 4-8 to 9-3, like, literally anywhere.
Agreed.
So we'll know. I mean, this is game 8 of the schedule, so we'll know a lot more about both teams by a few weeks in, and certainly by this point we'll know a lot more.
Yeah.
But granted, new teams, new coaching staffs, but this series with Oklahoma State has been close for a very long time. It's always a very competitive game. They're I would say in Oklahoma State are kind of like secretly fairly intense rivals, not like hated rivals like a Kansas State or an Iowa, but like just always play each other close. We've played Oklahoma State in stuff for a century. It's a fun matchup. It's a fun rivalry. It always produces exciting, close games. I think this will be another one of those. But I think Iowa State in this one should be able to run the ball effectively enough at home, get a couple turnovers, win that game.
I agree.
All right, let's go to the last game on the schedule for this preview. We got 3 more after this. But we're going now on the road to Waco, Texas, to Baylor. Now, Baylor is in a tricky spot here. They have been fairly underwhelming for a good chunk of Dave Aranda's tenure. He was good, very good early on, has lost a lot of steam since then. Baylor has given him a longer leash than I think even most people expected him to have. I think a lot of people thought he was going to get fired last year. But for most people seem to think that the general consensus is that if they aren't like 8-4 or better, Dave Aranda will probably lose his job here. But they took a swing in the portal. They went and grabbed DJ Lagway from Florida. Very high risk, high reward player here. When he's at his best, DJ Lagway can be electric. Great runner, great throw of the ball. When he's not at his best, he is a turnover machine.
Yes.
And can make some really, really crazy plays here and there that don't make any sense. Can really cost his team football games.
Yep.
Marchie, you played down in Waco. Kind of a weird place to play. It's not like super loud.
Yeah.
Their new stadium is better than the old one for sure, but it's not super loud. But unfortunately, you're getting them in November this year instead of like in September when it's 125 degrees.
Yeah.
But it can be a weird one, and if Baylor is underwhelming at this point, it can be one of those stadiums where it's kind of weirdly empty at that point. When you're going on a road to play in like a kind of a half-empty stadium, which Baylor could be at that point, how do you keep your motivation? Motivation is not the right word, but how do you keep your adrenaline? How do you keep that? How do you stay as motivated for a game like that? Not that you think that you're just going to go in and cakewalk a team, but like part of the way you obviously you guys weigh in on this, but like part of the fun of playing on the road in a big environment is like you use the crowd to you kind of let the opposing crowd fuel you, and then you go and then you shut them up, and then that's where it feels real good from there.
Yeah.
But if there's no opposing crowd, how do you maintain your energy level?
Well, number one, you should be self-motivated.
Yep.
I mean, it's another opportunity for you to play.
Yes.
Don't know where we would be right now as far as the season. That you get another opportunity to play. You get another opportunity to show what you can do. Number two, this is where leadership on the football team. Hey, it's half empty stadium, or it could be packed. Either way, you got to have great leadership. You got to know that, hey, we're coming down here for a business trip. It's not you shouldn't. In my opinion, at this point of the season, we probably shouldn't even be thinking like, half empty stadium, we can have this in the bag, or even those thoughts even creeping in our minds. You just got to continue to get better and move on. And then third, I think, the coaching staff will have those guys ready to go. It could be in the parking lot for all they care, probably. It's about another opportunity to go out here and win a football game. And to just comment on DJ Lagway, I think he's really talented, like you said, Levi. I don't know the situation at Florida, but I do know that, playing in the SEC and you're seeing those type of guys every week, it's tough. He probably was getting, his freshman year, he was kind of off and on as far as playing, not playing, because he was trading time with Mertz, or I think that was his name. And then last year was really his first full year of being a starter and having that opportunity. So obviously you're going to have some mistakes. Some of his mistakes was like really egregious. Like I remember watching the LSU game last year. Yep. I mean, it was just turnover after turnover after turnover. I think he had 5 picks that game.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously you're not going to win a football game. We just talked about it with Washington State and UNT. You're not going to win a football game turning the ball over 5 times, whether it's a fumble, muff, pick, whatever. So with that being said, in this game, I think you put pressure on him. I think he does struggle with pressure. And in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I've never really seen him be mobile like that to where I would be nervous about his legs. Now, I'm sure he can escape the pocket and get you a first down.
He's probably kind of like Fafita, where he's like, he can move around a little bit, but they're not going to like run him. They're not going to.
I don't know, because and also with him, and I'll get to that next, but with him, if you can put pressure on him and make him have to make decisions quickly, that's when the turnovers seem to come. Yeah. So showing a lot of disguises. Hey, maybe it looks like cover 3, and then we switch and we're blitzing and we're in man. And now he's got to make quick reads because the guys are on him quickly. Big Bobby Terrell game right here for me. Pass rushers, guys getting to the quarterback, because I think if you can get to the quarterback and kind of disrupt him, I think you play and they play into your advantage. But I do think he's super talented. If he has time and he can decipher, he can put the ball anywhere you want on the field. I do believe that. And I do think also that he will be better, even though he's in a new system. It's just as you continue to play, when you get more reps, you learn, you build, and you get better. So I'm assuming that he's going to be better. And I also know that they have a receiver that they got from Colorado, Draylon Miller, things like that. So I do think they got a few guys that can play. But all in all, I think if you can put pressure on him and make him have to think quickly, then you're playing into your advantage right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one, March. And I also think that he will be better, because I think the game will – at this point, it's probably becoming slow to him now, and that's when you're actually improving. And I think based off what he's seen last year in the SEC to come into the Big 12, I think the game will be a little bit, not that much slower, but it'll be a little bit slower to him. So
yeah, and we'll kind of see how this goes. So last year, so on defense, Baylor brought in Kansas State's quarterback Joe Klanderman. He brought in a few players from Kansas State last year, from Kansas State's roster. We'll kind of see how that goes. Last year, their defense was bad. It was just straight up bad. They did not win a single game in which they did not score at least 30 points on offense. Kansas State noted for typically having a pretty good defense, but maybe the biggest kind of portal, maybe the biggest guy they got, is they grabbed a defensive tackle, Hosea Wheeler from Indiana, who started 5 games last year for Indiana. Obviously, doesn't hurt to bring in a culture guy from Kurt Signetti's program. Usually a pretty good thing. Kind of like if you found an Alabama transfer somehow, pretty good. Usually a pretty good idea to bring in a Nick Saban guy. So we'll see. In theory, they've got some pieces here. But Aranda's teams have just not really been able to put it together very well. They keep changing offensive and defensive schemes. They keep doing they keep tweaking things. They tweak one thing and it starts working better, but then the other thing doesn't start working as well. They can't. It's kind of they're playing whack-a-mole here with different stuff on their team, and we'll see how long Baylor allows Dave Aranda to continue to play whack-a-mole. Basically, if with just the way that the college athletics calendar works now, and that frankly, that could literally change next week if this bill goes through and everything changes. But as of right now, the way the calendar works, if at this point in the season, I think you are, and this is the first week in November now. If Baylor is, if they're below 500 at this point, like if they're 3-4 or something like 3-5 or something like that, it's not out of the question that they may fire Dave Aranda early, the same way that like Mike, not quite as early as like Mike Gundy, but like at this point, the way the calendar works now is that as soon as you're not going to bring a guy back for the next season, you kind of just get rid of him and let somebody just interim coach the rest of the season to get a new guy in as soon as possible so they can get on top of recruiting and the transfer class. That's just how it works now. And if Baylor is still disappointing next season, there's a non-zero chance that they're playing in an empty stadium against an interim coach, which makes everything weird. And it could be, Baylor has so many question marks, and there's so much kind of like tension around the program as far as like this, this program has won Big 12 titles within the last decade, where they, their standard for how they play football is much higher than it used to be. There's some fear there is if you catch the dead cat bounce out, if they fire Aranda before this game, do they catch the dead cat bounce from Baylor? It's a tough road trip because it's way down in Waco, and you can't just like fly down there. It's kind of a weird bus trip, and then it's you're playing against a Baylor team with all sorts of stuff up in the air. This feels like a game, like you said, Bobby Terrell game where he can get in there and cause a lot of problems for DJ Lagway. Feels like a quarterback that absolutely can be interception prone against a defense, an aggressive defense that wants to be ball hawks and force interceptions. Feels like a potential matchup there that Iowa State can take advantage of. If you can lean on your running game, force a couple turnovers, you can go down in there and steal and get this win.
Totally agree.
So, I think if you can go, if you go into this game at 3-3, the stretch at 3-3 better through the first half, you're in fine shape. I think there's a realistic shot to get through this next three at 2-1. Mm-hmm. I think you can win. I think you can win 2 out of these 3 games, not necessarily just Oklahoma State and Baylor, but you could sneak in there and grab Arizona. I think if you can get out of this stretch 2-1, be 5-4 going into that last stretch of the season, you're in a great spot. You only got to win one. You only got to beat one of UCF and Cincinnati to make a bowl game. You should beat both of them to get to 7-4, and then you get Farmageddon at home to finish the season. Kansas State will probably be good, but it's Farmageddon. It's at home. You like Iowa State's chances to at least be in that game and potentially steal that win. And if you're 7-4 going into that last game,
they still got Avery Johnson.
They still have Avery Johnson, and now they have Colin Klein coaching them. And he's the guy that recruited Avery Johnson. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Avery Johnson's brain kind of seems to be broken, but I don't know. He just his whole mentality has really been messed up the last 2 years. But maybe Colin Klein maybe he's the Avery Johnson whisperer, and finally turn him into this like dark horse Heisman candidate that everyone like thought he was going to be a couple years ago. But we'll talk more about those 3 games. We'll talk about more of those 3 games next week on our last schedule preview pod. But any final thoughts for this stretch here before we wrap her up for today?
Yeah, I think this is a stretch where you start to see the team kind of build confidence. I do think this is the stretch where, potentially I agree with you, Levi. You could probably go 2-1 and really start, shocking some people and people starting to, hey, Iowa State's a, tough opponent that we got to come ready to play.
Yeah, totally agree, man. And I honestly think at the worst, me, I'm gonna say we're gonna go into this stretch at least 4-2. That's what I'm calling at the worst.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be in the jail together. I honestly don't know who yet, Marchie, you're gonna love to hear this. I think we're gonna have a breakout receiver by this time. I don't know which one it's gonna be, but I think we're gonna have one.
They've certainly got plenty of candidates. I mean,
yep.
Maury Hayes, Evan Boyd, Cody Jackson, Carter Pabst, Dominic Overby. Plenty of options here. Yep. I think there's an interesting way to look at the, we're breaking it into 4 episodes because it gives us plenty of time to talk to these, but and because a lot of times it makes sense to treat the season just in quarters, in 3-game stretches, because that I think really, especially this season, I think really this season you can take all of these little stretches and you can really define them by what sort of milestones you want them to hit. After the first 3 games, you want to see continuity on you want to see the defense getting up to speed. You want to see the offense finding some footing. After the second stretch, by the time you're at the middle of the season, we should see a very clear offensive identity. The defense should be starting to get play a little bit faster, generating some more turnovers, things like that. By the end of the third stretch here that we just got done previewing, this is where the defense is really starting to crank up the pressure a little bit. They can be more aggressive because they're more comfortable in the system, and the offense is now not just kind of like doing the things that they're comfortable doing all the time, but they're comfortable taking some more shots downfield, getting more aggressive, running more. Like I said, using Jalen Raynor's arm a little bit more, and changing things up, not necessarily just sitting in their comfort zone and just pounding the rock all the time. This is where the stretch where I think is if the natural progression of the team is going, the offensive line's getting better, they're gelling at this point. Tyler Roll's getting more comfortable as a play caller at this level. That this is where you start to see the offense really start to branch out and start to kind of spread some roots as far as this is you start to see what the ceiling of the offense looks like. You spend the first half of the season raising the floor and saying we can always be doing this. We're always working it this way. I got two Marchies.
Two Marchies.
It just kicked me out. Like I'm watching and it just it kicked me out. I was like, what the heck?
And you're raising the floor. You're getting consistency down. You're getting your running game in. This third stretch, this third quarter of the season, this is where you start to see the ceiling of the offense, what they can be at their best type of thing. That's where you start really seeing what they can be. And I think this is an interesting stretch to find, to do it against. You'll have some opportunities against a few defenses that theoretically have some pieces, but have some very significant vulnerabilities, especially in the secondary. And if you're an offense that's finally getting comfortable throwing the ball downfield a little bit more and stuff like that,
perfect timing.
It's good timing.
Yep,
especially coming off a bye week.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
I'm intrigued. So we'll wrap it up for this week. We'll be back again next Monday, 7 p.m., same time, same place. We'll wrap up our schedule previews, and we might even have some things to talk about from camp, some from the first media availabilities this week, and talk a little bit about it. But we are closing in. We are just about a month away from the first game of the season.
Can't wait.
It's exciting.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Yeah, man. It's coming up fast, man.
It is.
Hell yeah.
Praying for health. We've already endured enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta somehow. That's probably the hardest part about coaching is like just trying to keep these guys healthy. Trying to practice good enough, like where you're practicing hard and you're getting good work in, but not also like putting your guys in situations where they can get hurt. Because obviously, guys are going to get hurt, but we've already endured a couple in the spring, so you gotta keep these. Hopefully, we can keep these guys healthy.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, for March and Jordan, I'm Levi Stevenson. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Go Cyclones.